Yeah, the introduction, where you're from, and whatever you feel like.
All right, awesome. So I'm Gideon. I'm from Norcross, Georgia. I'm a third year studying political science and economics at UGA, and I'm currently serving as the chairman of UGA's College Republicans, which has been an incredible opportunity. What we usually do is we just kind of host speakers and host events. Like last fall, we had a tailgate with a bunch of like Chris Carr, Governor Kemp, and then just kind of promote Republican values through various activities like speakers, socials, and service, which is our 3 S's. So I'm excited for tonight, and hopefully I can clarify some stuff for any questions you'll have.
Well, my name is Stembridge. I'm from Greene County, Georgia. I'm the chairman of the newly formed Georgia's 10th Congressional District, Team Republicans. And one of the things that made me become a Republican was, well, when I was in 8th grade, so around 2019, I got very interested in politics. And one of the main things that made me actually realize I was a Republican was during the COVID pandemic, was when the school started to get shut down, and I realized that virtual learning wasn't for me, but for whatever reason, Democrats wanted to keep going with it. They wanted to keep being in control of our lives, and I realized I did not want the government being in control of my life. So because of that was one of the main reasons that when I saw that I was a Republican, and I've been one ever since. I've been working within the political arena. I was a volunteer for the Georgia Republican Party at last election season. And then I became a field organizer, making sure that we knock on every single door to reach every single voter to make sure that Governor Kemper was reelected and to help Herschel Walker get to where we could get him.
As Gordon said, my name is Brandon. I know most of you. I've been in and out of this room many times for the past 4 years. Been away for a little while, so it's nice to be back home and see so many familiar faces. I'm from Virginia, originally from Lynchburg. I've been down here for the past 4 years working on my doctorate. And the joke was that I was the oldest living college Republican. I started, my first semester as a college Republican was during Obama's second term. And here I sit now, how many presidents later? So. Like many of you, I measure my life in presidents. And yeah, I teach in the Department of Theater and Film Studies and the Department of Music. So yeah, that's a lot of fun. And I'm looking forward to this panel this evening.
Let me introduce Kemper. I think most of you know Kemper Higgins. Kemper's been around here for a while. Kemper's been very active in a lot of the campaigns that have taken place, especially with Trump, I remember. And so Kemper is head of Turning Point. That is another campus organization. So we'll kind of find out. We'll keep going all night. So, Kemper.
All right, is there a specific question?
Just where you're from, how you got started in the Republican Party, and
Got it.
what you're doing now.
I'm from Atlanta originally. I lived a little bit outside the perimeter in Tucker for about 10 years, and then moved inside the perimeter. I went to school at high school at St. Pius. And I guess I'd say I've been a Republican all my life. I used to come home from wrestling practice in 8th grade and watch Bill O'Reilly on TV. And I was probably the only 8th grader watching Bill O'Reilly that night. And so my parents, they were both Republicans, but they had always encouraged me to learn how to think, not what to think. And so in high school, I really got into politics and started doing my own research, listening to Ben Shapiro and other people, big names on the conservative side that you probably know, and just kind of developing my interest in politics. And so when I got to college, I decided to pursue a degree in political science. So I'm currently an undergraduate in my last semester of my senior year as a major in political science, but also philosophy, which I discovered in college. Before college, I don't think I could have told you the difference between philosophy and psychology. And so when I started along that study, I realized how much more to politics there is than just the day-to-day political debates about Nancy Pelosi's hair or something. The deeper issues about the ethics of politics and how our state should be organized and what it's right to do as a citizen and as a statesman. So I got involved in Turning Point at UGA my freshman year. It's where I met my best friend and now roommate, and I've been involved ever since. I've held various positions, the events coordinator. Do not hire me as your events coordinator. I was then the vice president, not this past spring, and then I'm now the current president, and I've been so since the beginning of last fall. And it's a great organization. We're nonpartisan. We're just on the conservative side of things. So we advocate for limited government, free markets, and basically getting the government out of your life. So it's Turning Point at UGA, I say, functions more of like a free speech organization where we invite various different people to come and talk, even if they're not like a speaker, but anybody on campus with any viewpoint to come and express their opinions and have good political debate without being horrible to each other. We don't want an in-person Twitter. So that's basically everything about me, and my grandmother's here. I'm also a member, and I've been a member since I worked for the Trump campaign in 2020, which was it was quite a time, but we didn't quite do it, but next time.
Yes, Lois is here. She's part of our Republican Party. Questions, okay? We'll start with Brandon, okay? And I like that for all of you, within your parameters, where you are. What's the climate that you face on a daily basis or in the community sphere in which you toward Republican, Democrat, Independent? What do you see from your vantage point, what's happening? We'll start with Brandon and just pass the mic back down this way.
Sure. Well, I occupy a really interesting positionality, going back and forth between the School of Music and the Department of Theater and Film Studies, neither of which are known for skewing in our direction. And it's especially recently been very challenging because students have absolutely no fear anymore. They will say whatever they're thinking, and it can be very challenging when, Kemper said, teach them how to think, not what to think. And it is almost like I feel not necessarily like I'm deprogramming years of what they've been told, but give the freedom to feel like you can say anything and you can think out loud about anything. You don't have to just say what you feel is expected. I get the sense that with a lot of their other classes, they know what the right answer is because they know what their professor expects them to say. And things that are in the news all the time, right? Critical race theory is an academic theory. It is accepted in the university as one of many theories. And it has a place in the university. And there's a way to use it and to talk about it, to juxtapose all of the other types of theories that you would use in an academic setting. But there's certainly not a place in, a third grade classroom for it because you don't have the tools yet to use it properly. You don't have the tools to use, you might be thinking, why does Marxism come up in a theater class? Marxism comes up in theater studies all the time. And so being able to say, this is a theory, and this is another theory, and these two theories do this, and you don't have to believe or accept either one of these theories. These are just 2 out of 100 options you can choose from. And this person says this, and they use this theory, and this person says this, and they use this theory. And I have found that people really enjoy the freedom to figure things out on their own. The environment that I try to create in my classrooms, where there is no right or wrong answer going into the room. We can come up with a right or wrong answer together. That's not something they're used to at the university because that's not something that they're finding in any other classroom. So that's sort of how I'm fighting on the A track. And then on the B track, I mean, raise your hand if you've ever said, why is this TV show so liberal? Why is this movie so liberal, right? Everybody in the room. And sort of my big passion project is addressing this. And it's probably been the biggest failure of our party over the past 20 or 30 years, where we have devalued creativity so much. We've devalued art, we've devalued music, we've devalued film and theater so much that we are pushing our people away from those fields. And so then we get a situation where everybody at Netflix is a liberal because the liberal families push their kids towards art and movies and creative writing. And we've got screenwriters, and none of the screenwriters are conservative, because every time a conservative kid said, "Mom, I think I want to be a screenwriter," Mom says, "No, you want to be a scientist." And push them away. And so there's been this sort of decades-long push away from the creative outlets. And that's what we're dealing with, the reckoning of that right now. When you go to Marvel and you just want to see superheroes kicking butt, and the movie stops and you get preached to for 15 minutes about why the black superheroes are more better at kicking butt than the white superheroes because of this, and this. And it's because we're not in that conversation. We don't have a seat at any of those tables. And so you'd be surprised how many of my students, with a wink and a nod, let me know, what team they're on, and they're kind of agree more with us than they would agree with other people. But really trying to foster screenwriters and foster designers, scenic designers, and musicians, and push them so that eventually we also have a seat at those tables, so that we're not saying, why does everything have this liberal bias? Why does all of these things? Because we're not there. We're not in the conversation. So by putting us in the conversation, we can steer media back in our direction. So those are the two fights that I engage in on a daily basis. And now it's your turn.
Well, I'm a student at Greene County High School, and that school is it's a majority minority school. So my experience has been very different. But I've been in the Greene County public school system my entire life, so I know a lot of those people. But what I've learned is, usually if you don't try to force things on people, usually they will at least listen to you, even if they don't agree. Another thing I have learned is that most of the things that they do disagree on is not because they are educated on the issue. It's just that their parents have put this in their head. But something that has really been coming around lately is social media has been influencing the way that young people think. So like TikTok, they watch a lot of TikToks, and it really influences the way that, of their thinking, and they bring it back to schools. And then we also have teachers who kind of edge it on, and they kind of go along with it, and nothing happens with that. They're allowed to indoctrinate in the schools, and nobody tries to say anything about it. So I would say that one of the things that is different for me, like I said, if you don't try to force it on them, they usually will at least listen, even if they don't agree. But also, I think parents have to get back involved in the school board meetings so they know what the children are being taught, because Democrats are using the parents not being involved as a way to go ahead and start indoctrinating. And then if you indoctrinate young, then when they get older, they're going to still be Democrats. And then that's how you come up with generational Democrats, which a lot of African Americans are. They're generational Democrats because mama was a Democrat, grandmama was a Democrat, and so they never really saw another way of thinking. One of the problems with that is, like specifically in Greene County, Republicans do not do enough to at least try to get a voice within the black community. We only go to them during the election seasons. It can't be like that. Democrats are going over there all the time. They're making their names known. They're making sure that people know that, hey, Democrats are the one doing this stuff for you. And then they spread lies and misinformation on social media, and then that helps to influence the children. Once again, they go back and tell mom doesn't do any more research, dad doesn't do any more research, they just go with it. And then that's how Democrats get this huge base of black voters. And then one of the last things I'm gonna say about it is, within Greene County, one of the reasons why I want to create this organization, the Teen Republicans of the 10th Congressional District, is because in the last election, Democrats won the youth vote over 28% to the Republicans, which is ridiculous. But they were able to win over those voters because they started young. that's why we need to have this team organization where people can get a voice, where we can listen to them, where they can listen to us, and maybe we're not trying to indoctrinate them, but we want to educate them more on politics and more on policies and show them this is what happens when you try to implement communism, or this is what happens when you try to implement socialism. So that's one of the main reasons why I want to start this organization, so we can start making inroads with the youth again.
Right, yes.
Yeah, so for me personally, as a political science major, I mean, obviously some of the classes at UGA, like professors, some of them are like very liberal, some are like moderately liberal, and then some are just, there's very few conservatives. I've had one, but who's just like too afraid to talk about it. But I think besides just like that stereotype, I think one of the more important issues is I think that UGA's campus is honestly pretty 50-50 in terms of conservatives and Democrats. A lot of conservatives are either indifferent or like too afraid to speak out. So I think just kind of encouraging conservatives to like speak out for their beliefs and like stand up for them, and like realize that if they don't make time, then this is what's gonna happen. Like what we see at UGA right now, at least for me personally, is that I feel like liberals just dominate all of our classroom discussions, like curriculum, all that, because a lot of kids are just too afraid to speak out. So I think maybe like partnering with the party and just kind of promoting that, and then just ensuring that people have the resources and the knowledge to know like what's right and like what they believe in, and also just kind of giving them an outlet that like, hey, if you don't speak out, like then your values are not going to be like completely opposed by Democrats.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that a lot. I think that it's certainly, so there's a strange situation on UGA's campus, because I found that the classes that are the most ideologically centered are the more arts-centered ones, as Brandon was saying. And I think that the fight on the cultural front is extremely important. It's not quite a pet project of mine, but I love to draw, I love art. My dad's a graphic designer, so I'm involved in that world at least a little bit. Dip my toes in the water. And I think that the climate at UGA is interesting, because you hear a lot about how conservatives can't exist on campus, and the conservative thought is being suppressed. And I think that it's less of a formal suppression and more of an informal one. There's this doctrine in free speech research and constitutional law about a chilling effect, where if you implement a policy that chills free speech, you're discouraging people from speaking out freely, even if you're not explicitly prohibiting them from doing that. And I think on campus, that's mostly what it is. It's a social factor. It's of deterring people from speaking their beliefs. Like I probably would not wear a Turning Point shirt around campus, because you never know what some crazy person is going to say to you or what people are going to think about you, because the temperature of the room is always to the left. Now, is that a horrible thing? It's annoying sometimes, but I think the real important conversations that happen in the classroom, and with a responsible professor, that can be done very well without a chilling effect. And the real important conversations happen on a one-to-one basis. So Turning Point tables twice a week on Tuesdays and Thursdays out on the main campus right in front of the Tate Center. And we put out signs that are very provocative, so just to get people over there, and we'll do like a fun poll. And there have been complaints about our signs, like, "Oh, this is crazy," talking like making fun of communism or something like that. And sometimes people will walk by and jeer at us. But most of the time, even the people that disagree, if they walk that way a lot, we'll talk to them at least once or twice, and then they'll be not exactly friends with us, but friendly. And I think that that's another important thing, is that Republicans and conservatives in general have this, there's this image of the Republican, which is like an old white guy in a suit. And now, there are a lot of old white guys in suits in here. There's nothing wrong with that. In 50 years, that'll be me. I will be an old white Republican in a suit.
How many years?
He said 50, Gordon.
But that impression comes from the fact that we're not on the cultural front, that we're not out there having conversations with people, especially as young people. And that's why I'm so happy to be on this panel, is to kind of share that experience of being out there and tabling and letting people know that, like, we're not some rich guy on his yacht who's like, "Oh, I want to steal money from poor people," and we're also not a crazy Nazi or something, which is also an impression that people get. I've had so many conversations with people where they'll say, I've never actually really thought about it like that before. And I'm like, this is what we've been saying, but it's just, we're not saying it the right way. So I think those personal one-on-one conversations are really critical to making a change and getting people more involved and getting people at least accustomed. Like, you can't change someone's mind in one conversation, not usually, but getting people accustomed to that point of view, understanding why we are conservative, what the underlying principles are. And I think that it's critical to growing the GOP and the conservative movement in general as a movement in America and reclaiming some political power in the country.
Thank you. Okay. You know my rule, okay, about questions, right? Everybody know?
No, I don't.
Okay. The rule is you can ask a question, you cannot go on your tirade, okay? You cannot, and if you want to single out somebody, that's fine. But let's take some question time, and I'll kind of, John, you were the first hand I saw.
I would like to address this to all four of you, and just give me your concise.
Can I hear?
Yeah.
Can I hear your
I
question?
hope they can.
Yep.
Well, what I'd like to know is what you think us old white guys and gals can do to help you.
Okay.
That's it.
Good question. Brandon, let's start.
Yeah, I don't know, because I've never.
You never been an old white guy.
But I have very actively tried my whole life never to view such a strict binary like that. I've always felt at home in this room. I've been in and out of this room since 2019. And I think what we need to do as a group of people who interact, I mean, everybody leaves this room and then interacts with another 100 people every day. And then those 100 people interact with another 100 people every day. And that keeps going. And I think we need to really try to de-emphasize that. We need to de-emphasize this idea that there are only old white guys and there are only, this untapped minority market. There are people, and we're all, the panel, I mean, I'm 31, and how old are you?
You're how?
16, 31, Gordon. You need to get you're having a hard time.
What day is it?
Yeah. So, I mean, even just between the four of us, there's a big gap in age, and I think that's just viewing everybody as this is going to sound so corny. Americans. At the end of the day, we all want what's best for the country, and I like to think that even Democrats think that way, because you have to believe that they're so convicted to do what they're doing, because at the end of the day, they think that's what's best for the country, which is why there's so much more commonality, I think, that we have, not only with each other, but with the big liberal boogeyman. I think that it starts by shifting the conversation away from, we're so different, what do, to we're so incredibly similar. Let's find a way to live in that similarity. What do you think?
Well, first of all, some people's mind you're just not gonna be able to change. I mean, look at Herschel Walker. He was black, he played football, and he was a Republican, and people still call him a white supremacist.
Yes.
So some people, you just won't be able to change their minds. So, but what I would say is, like I said earlier, we have to get back into the black community and let them know our vision. One of the main problems is they just don't know the alternatives to what the Democrats have to offer. They think that the Democrats have a lot to offer because they talk about free health care and all this other stuff that they think that black people would like a lot. And they're not just black people, but Hispanics also. Mm-hmm. So one of the main things is we have to let them know what the message is, and we have to go in the community and kind of speak it to them. Because in the last election cycle, we had a lot of U.S. Senate Republicans candidates who were African American. So it's not like, we don't have a few big names out there, because we do. It's just that number one, some people just not gonna be able to be changed. And number two, the media likes to show it in that way. It's all about, the media always likes to control the narrative. And so the media likes to show the Republican Party as the party of white men in suits and all that stuff. And one of the last things I would say is, with the politicians that get elected, we have to start electing people who are going to be servants, people who are going to serve the people. That's one of the problems that I hear when I do speak to African Americans, things like that, is that they feel that Republicans are people who go up to Washington and think they're high and mighty, and then they feel like that they feel left out after that. Even though I don't fully understand how you do feel that just with the Republican Party, because in my opinion, there's a lot more Democrats like that than Republicans. But I guess that's one of the main things. We have to go back into the community and voice our platform in the Black community.
Yeah, so I'd say like ways that you guys might be able to help us out is probably the first thing would be fundraising. I'm sure that's probably like the last thing you guys want to hear, since everyone's out for y'all's money, but it really does help us just kind of get like voter outreach drives and have cooler meetings to kind of like attract more people. And second of all, I'd probably just say it's always nice to like just be doing something and then someone be like, hey, like keep up the good work. So like just moral support, that's always great. And then third, if you know anyone that's going to UGA or in whatever organizations these guys are in, just encourage them to come out. That really means a lot to me personally. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that all these are great points. Fundraising, we're always wanting money, but so is everybody else who stands up here and talks in front of you. So we can't really ask for it. But I will be here after the meeting. I think that a lot of it comes down to those one-on-one conversations with people, and just if you have grandkids or their friends, just having those conversations, starting kids young, talking about it, and then also just being a base for the party. But again, like Brandon said, you have to view people as individuals, and the trouble with that is sometimes it matters the mouth of the person who it's coming out of. I know that I would be taken more legitimately in a conversation with a young person than you might, only because of our age difference. And it's just this kind of implicit thing, like, old man that's talking to me about politics, he's just hard in his ways, like, he doesn't understand the true communist revolution. It's like, it doesn't make any sense. It's silliness, but it's the facts of the world. And so I think that I've felt that with myself sometimes, where I can't speak on specific political issues because I don't have as much legitimacy. And so sometimes I just have to step aside and let the people who are experiencing those issues directly take the helm. And so sometimes it's just that. It's just leaving room for the young people to come in and have a voice in the party. And obviously that's what you guys are doing. So I really appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Thank you, Kemper. Who's next? John Marsh.
Okay, this is for Brandon to begin with, and then the others, and with you because of the arts. So if you look at one of the things I think that has really cultivated the left in the arts is that they mentor each other and they bring people up and all of that. And then even in the university, you have a professor that takes the young student and teaches them how to write the academic paper and all of that so that they can go on. We Republican business people, we may mentor people in business, but not in that. But one of the things that I have seen in the last few years.
Question.
That's where I'm getting this.
Okay.
We're exploring that question. Is that people like David Mamet and Kevin and Sam Sorbo and other people are coming out as conservatives in Hollywood and in this arts area. Are you starting to see more of that where they're kind of taking more of a mentoring attitude or doing things to bring people along and teach them the trade?
Not particularly. The industry does not sustain conservative individuals at this time. Mamet's a great example because right at the time that Dave Mamet sort of started letting his political beliefs be really common knowledge, and he was doing every show on Fox. he had a play that was getting ready to open on Broadway, a revival of American Buffalo. And the cast of the play wanted to go on strike because they felt that the playwright going on Fox News and talking about what he really thought was antithetical to the theater industry. And the actors union told them they couldn't strike because they had a contract, and they did it. And the play was a big hit because it's great work, and that's the thing is separating the person from the art is something that I think we are really good at, and it's not something that the other side has really mastered yet. They see the person and the art as one entity. Which is it's the same way they view the founding fathers, and I mean, how many times have you heard people say, we shouldn't celebrate Thomas Jefferson because of XYZ, but we can celebrate the good things that Thomas Jefferson did and the legacy that we enjoy today, and I mean Mozart was not a very racially sensitive guy if you read some of his letters, but it was the 1780s. So it's this dual consciousness of saying, okay, well, maybe this is what he was writing to his father. But the music is fabulous. Why can't we separate? That's one thing that we are pretty good at, and that the liberal industry, they see David Mamet is saying this on Fox, and that's what David Mamet means, and that's what David Mamet's plays mean, and this, and this. It was interesting to me because conservatives did not like David Mamet until David Mamet started being openly conservative. So there's something there maybe to talk about in another conversation. I don't think we're at the point yet where people can mentor a new generation safely. James Woods hasn't worked in 10 years, 15 years, because he's been one of the most vocally conservative people in Hollywood. Kevin Sorbo, when was the last time he worked, right? We're starting to see, the only person who's been able to manage that is Arnold Schwarzenegger, who's been able to manage being conservative and still working. So I don't know, I'd like to think we could get there, but I think we're 15, 20 years away from a place where the industry is balanced and you just work on projects you want to work on instead of because you feel like you have to.
I think that's gonna have to be just a particular question for Brandon. Sherry.
This is for Jaquan?
Jaquan.
Yeah. When you have your, the second one.
Oh, me?
Yes.
Oh, Gideon.
Gideon, that's
Yeah.
Gideon.
Okay, Gideon, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no
Gideon.
worries.
When you have your meetings, how many do you usually have coming to your events? And have you ever tried to shut you down when you had a particular conservative speaker come in like they've done on other campuses or Michael Knowles and Ben Shapiro?
Yeah, so it really depends on who's speaking. Sometimes we'll have like as little as like 15 to 20, and sometimes we'll have up to like, I remember last semester for Governor Kemp, we had probably had like 200, 300, so that was awesome. So it just really depends on like how many people are coming, like what other events are on campus that day. And then as far as like the left shutting us down, we had Herschel Walker, which I was like a little worried about last semester, but that ended up going fine. We're trying to host Marjorie Taylor Greene next semester, so I think that might be one that we'll definitely need a little more security at. But so far, I think it's also because the Young Democrats have their meeting at the same time as us, so they're all too busy.
Smart.
Yeah, doing that, so.
Okay.
Let's see, Mara,
She's my
speak up, stand up.
Hi, Jaquan. I would like to commend you for what you're doing. I think you are heading the right way. You're so smart. I wanted to ask you, I have had the same experience as you've had, where I find that in the brown and black communities, a lot of misinformation, and that the way people get their information sometimes is through family or media that's not necessarily truthful. I find that, as an example, not too long ago, we had a podcast with Joan that was on, and she discussed homestead exemptions. and the gentleman who was engineering that radio show was so surprised at the information that Joe was giving in reference to some truth about Homestead, that he actually went out and called people to tell them that what they were believing was not true, that the truth was something else. Now he asked me, how can we get this truth, this other information out there so that our communities can hear it, and which is something I heard from you expressing. What would you say would be the best approach for a group like ours here, which is mainly white Republicans who have a certain brand or image of being cold and, you know, not really necessarily reaching out, like you said, especially if they do it during the time of voting, but then they disappear. What would be the best approach that you could recommend that this group of people try to reach out to that community that not necessarily is getting the full truth of issues?
Thank you. Well, one of the main things that I could say for like a group like this as a party as a whole is I would say you need to have more events where you have people like who come from like the Black Voices for Trump, even if you don't like President Trump, but you gotta have more people like that who are more outspoken and have more experiences like me to come out and speak about those issues. Like for example, Kevin King, he goes around speaking at a lot of events about his experiences as an African American male. And that's just one of the people come from the top of my head. But you gotta have more people like that coming to these events, and then they can help bring in more people, basically showing them that there are people who look like you who are part of our party, and then spreading it out to social media, hitting those bases of their social media. And then as much as we don't like TikTok very much, I think we have to start going on places like TikTok, because a lot of those, like I think it was libs of TikTok, they keep getting deleted, but the more we go on TikTok, the more people that we can reach. The more we go on social media in general, the more people we can reach. And that's one of the best ways to get to them. So door knocking, social media, making phone calls like you do when you asking for their vote. Do that on a regular basis. Have more events for people of color on a regular basis, and show them that we don't really care that you're Black, we don't care that you're Hispanic, we don't care what you are. We love you just like you're one of us. We want you to be a part of this because this is bigger than a race issue. This is about the future of our country. And once you start putting it in that way to them, showing them that this is about the future of our country and it's not about race, we're not trying to suppress you, because that's what they think that we're trying to do, that y'all are trying to do. If you let them know that we're not trying to suppress you, we want you to feel like family here. That's one of the best ways to get them, because right now they feel like a group like this is just trying to suppress them. They think that you all don't want them to voice their opinion. But if you let them come in a room like this, voice their opinion, and then you give your opinion on things, it starts just like that. You have regular conversations that turn into, oh wow, I never thought of it that way. And then that's how you get more voters. So.
I have a quick point to add to that, because you talked about door knocking. When I was knocking for the 2020 Trump campaign, I was a field organizer and then the deputy regional field director for this area. I knocked in a lot of poorer areas of Athens, and before I started knocking, right at the beginning of the job, I was like, do I want to go to these areas? Are they going to spit in my face? Are they going to completely not even give me the time of day? And I think, as a white guy, I would understand this feeling that a lot of you might have about fearing that racial divide, not like having cultural differences that sometimes make it difficult to bridge that gap. But what I found is, just like you were saying, just having a normal conversation. I would walk up the door, knock on it like I would any other door, and we would talk about it. And I had some great conversations. I was pleasantly surprised about how many Black Trump voters there were in Athens. Now, there weren't that many, as you might imagine, but I did have conversations with people where I'd say, they were like, oh, what you doing out here? I was like, I'm walking for the Trump campaign. They're like, oh yeah, I like that. I was like, wow, this is great. It's like you find support in nooks and crannies that you would never think to look in. And it's just about looking in those nooks and crannies, looking around the city we have here and finding those people and getting them out and getting them involved. And having resources like flyers for county meetings, going out and in person inviting people to come out and going on door knocking campaigns. I think it's a fantastic idea in the off season doing door knocking campaigns just to have a voice in the community, because right now there's one voice in the community, Kelly Gertz or the PA or whoever. It's all coming from one side of the aisle, and we have to be out there and be present. You know, having an event downtown where people are walking by and see us there, and yeah, they're going to scream crazy things, but you know, that's how you get the word out.
I want to say something. My name is Mark Schultz. I'm the chairman of Greene County, and I came here down here to support you, He came to our county convention last Saturday. He was the only black person in the audience. And I will tell you, I have started to engage the communities in Greene County, and I don't know much about Clark County. I'm going to tell you about Greene County. But my problem is I feel that in Greene County, people are broken down into groups. And they don't seem to want to get out of those groups. You try to engage them in a conversation, and I'm asking the four of you if you see the same thing. Do you see this where I can't get people to break out of the little groups that they've created around themselves, and it's very difficult to get into a different political group or some other?
Who wants to take that?
I can start. My high school girlfriend was liberal until she wasn't. And a lot of it's about perseverance. That's what I've noticed.
You lie.
Good to see it. I think it's a lot about just having the very basic conversations. And Brandon made a great point earlier about common ground. Is that we actually have much more in common with the Democrats than we would ever like to believe. And it's that we both have a vision for what the best country looks like. Now that vision differs in certain ways, but getting to those things and not getting caught up in all the day-to-day stuff, I found to be the most productive. It's like, why do you think that we should increase taxes to pay for welfare? Why is it that you think that? It's because you want to help people that are in need. That's why they think that. And we also want to help people in need. We just don't think that helps people in need. And so that's why philosophy has been so useful to me, is because it just allows you to look at an issue and break it down and see actually what's at the root of the conversations that are going on in political discourse. Instead of yelling about more taxes, less taxes, or more welfare, less welfare, go, what is welfare exactly? Why is this a system that we have in the first place? What is its goal? Is it achieving that goal? If it's not, then we may need another solution, and that might be the conservative solution of having lower taxes and a free market that increases the economy of a community. And so breaking people out of their groups happens when you don't look at them as a conglomeration of specific views on specific issues. You look at them as a human being that believes the world should be a better place. Like I think all of us in this room do. You wouldn't be involved in politics if you didn't think the world was either, going to hell in a handbasket, or, you're trying your best to stop that process from happening. And it's just about that. It's about finding the root and examining it and saying, we actually have a lot more in common than you might think, and then working them on the actual principles, the economic principles or the social principles, and getting them to a place where they can even see it as an option, like you were saying.
Anybody else on that one? Linda.
This is a curiosity question. I grew up during the Cold War. I was living in Florida, so it was a real threat to us, right across from Cuba. So we were schooled very deeply on communism and socialism, and it was just a very integral part of our school system. And I grew up thinking, gosh, if you have a democracy, who would ever go back to socialism or communism? So I'm wondering if those are still things that are taught deeply in school. Now, do you really get an understanding of what socialism, how it has worked in prior times, or how communism really runs and what happens to the people that are living under communism? It's just a curious question.
Who's it to? Jake?
It's to anybody who wants to.
Okay, anybody wants?
I can take this.
Okay, Gideon.
Yeah, so my mom's an immigrant from South Korea, and if you just look at the consequences and like the divide right there, like on Instagram, I saw a picture that was literally just like the difference between the night lighting between North Korea and South Korea. It's like pitch black North Korea. They cross the 38th, and it's just like absolutely like just an electric city down in South Korea. So I think just like kind of demonstrating that is really important, and something that I agree like schools don't do enough of. I mean, I would say that like there's definitely like liberal bias, as I mentioned earlier, at UGA's campuses, and but just I'd say in my high school in general too. But I think that's something that we need to work towards and like address, and hopefully through a future Republican administration we can change as well.
Jake one?
Well, at my school, no, that's not really. They don't teach us that communism is wrong. We have a teacher who believes he teaches history, but he doesn't say that communism is wrong. But he doesn't say it's right. He likes to stay in the middle for whatever reason. But we have another teacher who teaches us that communism is the way to go. And you know, when you're talking to kids who don't even understand the basics of economics or anything like that don't understand politics, of course they're going to go with that because they trust their teacher. At least you're supposed to be able to. So they trust their teacher's opinions and they go along with it. And now that's helping to grow them up to continue to believe that, because once they go into, if they do decide to go to college, obviously probably their professors probably going to continue to go with it. And so at my school personally, no one tells us that communism is wrong. No one tells us that socialism is wrong. Matter of fact, we have people who come to the school with Bernie Sanders stickers on, which is fine for that, but if you come to school with a Trump sticker, then you're gonna get kicked out. So it's a double standard. And like one more thing, once again with TikTok stuff, if you go on TikTok, it's gonna be very hard for you. Matter of fact, I have an assignment right now about socialism, capitalism, and communism. I've been trying to look up videos to kind of help with the argument a little bit, and you don't find any videos about why capitalism is the way to go, but you can find a lot of videos about why it's not the way to go, or why socialism should work, or why or how communism does work, which is one of the main reasons why I fear that in the future we're going to have more leaders who's going to come up and they're going to start trying to say, yeah, capitalism doesn't work, they're going to try to get rid of it.
We're going to take one more, if we got one. Okay, Athena.
Have you ever tried to compare noted Democrats like the JFK's investment plan to Donald Trump's investment plan for the country? And if you do you find them quite similar? And it's easy to sell across the aisle?
Well, I will say a lot of African Americans love JFK. So there's a lot of things I would say that JFK was, his ideology would be more of.
Wait a minute, before you get started, start with enterprise.
Okay, so I would say, I don't know much about JFK, but what I would say is I do know a lot about President Trump. With the enterprise stuff, I'll be more one of these type of people who get to speak more with that.
I mean, this kind of goes to both of these questions, because the narrative of history lives now in what you're told. We're so my youngest student is born around 2005. My oldest student is born in like 2002. So there's absolutely no connection to anything they're reading about in the history books. And there's no connection to JFK. There's no connection to economic policies of the past. Because it's just history. It might as well be the 1100s. I mean, it might as well be feudal lords, because they're just reading about it in a history book. There's absolutely no personal connection. So it's hard to show the similarities between economic policies when one is so distant to you, you have no concept of it. And the other one, you're hearing about it on the news every day. Just like it's hard to show how bad socialism was, because there's absolutely no connection to it. It's just this idealized thing that they're reading in books. and liberals hated taxes too until Bill Clinton. So there's this weird, I don't think it would be possible to even begin a conversation with a comparison between economic policies of any past president, let alone someone who has been, gone through this apotheosis like Kennedy has, because there is no way for especially young people to even begin to understand how much the economy has changed, how much America has changed, and why those policies were so popular then, and why they are either viewed with popularity or unfavorability today, compared to Trump's economic policies, which were largely phenomenal and had really great impact. It's too distant. It's too distant. It becomes narrative at that point. And to his point, then the teacher can say whatever they want. The teacher can say, this was this, and it's the narrative in that classroom because there's no connection to it. And that's the problem, is we have lost, the facts of history are no longer the narrative because we're so far from history. The narrative can be whatever needs to suit whatever's going on in that classroom.
Thank you. I think we got some hope for the future, you know? And we got some other college Republicans back here. Glad you guys are here. Y'all are here to support Kemper, Gideon, Jaquan, and Brandon. Thank you all for being here. Y'all gonna stick around for a couple more minutes? We're almost finished, but let's give them a big hand. A couple of